I am divorcing my spouse following his. He extended an invitation to his former partner for dinner and humiliated him. I am now being criticized by everyone for. We have a 4-year-old child who is eager to leave. The union of Tom and I has resulted in our marriage. He was an undergraduate for 5 years, and I was in the process of finishing my master's degree when I resigned from graduate school shortly after we first encountered one another. I had to leave my employment after getting married, but I had to return to work at the age of 6 when our child was born. Tom's salary was not received for months, an adequate amount to sustain the 3 of us. Arguments ensued as a consequence of that decision, as Tom perceived it to be disrespectful to him in some capacity and illustrated my. I attempted to overcome his lack of conviction and his abilities, to convince him for weeks that this was not associated with his capabilities and that in my view, 2 salaries would be superior to 1 after he discovered that I could take some time off work to invest. He ultimately warmed up to me with our son, following an extended period of anger directed toward me. The disadvantage was that I was ultimately responsible for all of the tasks of the household chores in addition to my occupation. Tom asserts that his occupation is more physically demanding. His workload is considerably more demanding than mine, as he operates as a personal trainer at a local gym. Assumes that I operate from a desk because I should be responsible for the majority of the, despite laboring for an extended period, perform household chores. Hours during which he stated that household duties should not be performed. I find it to be excessively taxing due to my lack of engage in a significant amount of physical activity at work. We had reached an agreement prior to my commencement, working that he would provide assistance with that, at least some responsibilities, but each time when I returned home, the task was only partially completed. He frequently asserted that he was also. We would dispute about being tired as an excuse. I continued to struggle with it until I ultimately surrendered, in an effort to motivate him to fulfill his obligation, prevent the frequent conflicts that I initiated, caring for all aspects of my life independently. I began smoking due to my extreme anxiety. Tom also made light of me for being stressed out. This assertion that I was merely endeavoring to demonstrate my stress level, in addition to bearing Tom's persistent criticism of my inadequate culinary abilities, which were, it is primarily his responsibility, as he has never. I assisted in the preparation of meals, and I had multitasking between business and other obligations that I had been fulfilling before. In this manner for the past few years, being aware that our departure would have an impact on us, I remained exclusively for the sake of my son's life. I ultimately relinquished and employed a domestic last year. She was responsible for covering her expenses out of her own pocket. Tom persisted in his disparaging remarks toward me due to the fact that he was of the opinion that it was a reflection of my. He was frequently plagued by his inadequate household skills, comparing me to his mother and his relatives, and other women whom he knew who were without. He would experience difficulty balancing work and personal responsibilities at home, merely chuckle and advise me to remain composed down because it was merely a jest. Although I would argue that these women most certainly had supportive husbands, we would be considerably more incensed by this. We would occasionally engage in amusement together, but what were the instances in which he would aggravate me? I recollected, and had been contemplating, regarding obtaining a divorce for an extended period of time when Tom brought his former fiancée, Lucy, who is 28 years old. Last week, I eventually succumbed to my loss while returning home for dinner. It was his high school fiancée, Lucy, and he was in a relationship for nearly 6 years prior to. The reason for their separation was that they were attending the initial occasion. He attended various universities. She was observed at the grocery store where she had. I recently relocated to our region and inquired about her for dinner without soliciting her permission. Even after our marriage, I remained friends with Tom's acquaintances, would frequently bring her to her feet and make. He was ridiculed for it, and I was aware of these two. Were quite the attraction in high school. Nevertheless, this did not adequately prepare me for his behavior. Behavior that is excessively pleasant and flirtatious. At dinner, it was evident that he was making an effort to aggravate me, and it was successful. That was the second strike, and then after his third strike, he began to make comments about I would be a disorganized housewife, and I was extremely fortunate to have a profession that allowed me a justification. Otherwise, he would not be capable of elucidating the reason to any of my visitors. The reason I am such a poor cook is that Lucy is a mother of 2 daughters who resides at home. He continued to make remarks about the extent of she was superior to me in all aspects. He made a jest about the fact that I would never be apprehended. Engaging in such behavior subsequent to being informed, I was informed that Lucy was in fact at the grocery store purchasing ingredients for she ultimately decided to prepare a French dish for her husband. It caused them both to chuckle immensely. Also referenced my smoking, asserting that I was merely attempting to display my tension levels comparable to Lucy's flawlessness. I was resisting tears at every turn. However, I elected to grin at that juncture. I was unwilling to endure the entire ordeal. Lucy to experience the delight of my presence. I made the decision to depart after serving. While crying, they served them ice cream for dessert because it was an embarrassing experience for which I waited. This was the case until Tom retired to bed that evening. It was not unusual, as I usually clean I do not go to bed at night, and I wash dishes. I packed some items while he was snoozing, clothing and other essentials for our son, and I arranged for a taxi to transport us to my destination. As soon as he began, he visited his parents' residence. By the time I arrived, the individual was dozing. As soon as it was nearly midnight, I began to weep. As my mother opened the door, and I endeavored to elucidate my child, who began to feel irritable and bewildered. As a consequence, I wept, as I was uncertain whether Tom could adequately care for him while I was absent, and I was unwilling to leave him to discover that I was obligated to deliver him. My parents took us without my permission. I was present when my son was placed to sleep. I have finally been able to gather myself and provide them with the details of the conversation that Tom had with me the following morning, hastened to ascertain the answer. Where I was, his voice was tinged with concern. Disappeared, and he erupted in laughter when I disclosed the truth to him and declared that I was contemplating filing for divorce with him. Advised me to simply return home and cease. I became so incensed by the turmoil that I began to rail at him, accusing him of being a misogynistic, indolent, and selfish individual, and he ultimately appeared to acquire an EPT man. That I was sincere when I informed him of the matter. I would prefer to remain solitary for the duration of he began my existence then returned to him, arguing with me over the phone and making accusations against me of making a significant commotion and exaggerating of nothing rather than providing in his contrition, he maintained that there was the necessity to interpret events as personal, and that his remarks were merely an attempt to enhance the ambience in the vicinity of Lucy. The issue is that his quips were not hilarious, they were spiteful and unkind, particularly in light of the fact that he is already exerting himself every day. He continued to challenge my capabilities. When he began to behave in a manner that was indicative of victim, recognized that this was not merely just implying that I had been devising my departure for an extended period of time, and that was the final straw. Currently, all of our acquaintances are sending me text messages to inform me that I should prioritize our family over myself, and refrain from permitting a handful of stupid quips to undermine. Everybody is constantly mentioning that our marriage is I should refrain from causing damage to a residence due to a few jokes. Despite my efforts to provide an explanation, that there are numerous items I am uncertain as to why certain individuals appear to experience greater emotional intensity. I was at peace when I posted an explanation of I had previously discussed all of this with Tom as well. I observed it and commented that I should. I would have informed him if these were my issues, and he would have addressed them. I have been informing him of these matters, but it has remained unchanged for years, so it is absurd. I have just concluded and I felt as though I was conversing with a wall, but subsequent to that post he began to insist that he required only one final opportunity to ensure its functionality and that he would modify it and improve. He persuaded a few of our acquaintances to attempt to persuade me to remain by informing me that he would unquestionably enhance and generate an exceptional my spouse. However, it causes me irritation that he, consistently reminding us of our friends, appears to be employing a deceptive and peer pressure to attempt an immature strategy to dissuade me from seeking a divorce. In recent years, I have provided him with. There are numerous opportunities to improve, but he has never done so, so I am under the impression that he is not doing so. Even if I am incapable of changing longer, I am certain that he is currently present, would endeavor to make a genuine effort for a few months before returning to his previous state. Previous behavior, I am weary of being a. Despite the fact that I am a single mother, my spouse and I are not growing any younger. He is far from the optimal role model for our. I am most passionate about my son, in addition to anything else. I surely do not wish for my son to mature inside a household that exhibits Tom's type of conduct, is accepted for the benefit of my son and myself, remained with him for an extended period of time, and I am now departing him for the same reason. 2 days ago, I submitted my divorce petition and he is chiefly upset because he was served today, because he had never desired a divorce in the first place. Initially, and as a result of my request, maintain the residence in which we resided and stored for the full custody of our son or to sell it, and divide the profits with me in a 60-40 ratio. Receive the larger portion because both. The residence was gifted to us by one of our parents. My understanding is that it is solely a bridal gift, merely that I retain it or that we partition it. The proceeds from its sale as a result of all of the effort and labor that I have invested. For the past few years, I have been employed. I am currently occupied with the full-time care of my son, and without his assistance, I perform all household tasks. I believe that I should be granted the larger amount. Part 1. Am of the opinion that the petition is quite reasonable as I am not even requesting it. I am seeking alimony, despite my desire for a divorce. Tom asserts that I am being unjust and that I should not have requested complete custody, due to the fact that our son is equally his and mine, which is logical, but I am skeptical. He is capable of becoming a father. He continues to visit and see his son whenever possible. I have not yet made an attempt to take what she desires. He merely revoked his visiting privileges. Does not employ him on a full-time basis. He contacted me after I had been served and informed me that I was acting irrationally and that this was He claimed that it was a horrible overreaction, considering that I was requesting complete custody in the residence with which he was already dissatisfied, the divorce, and had a valid cause to contemplate. I was being extremely irrational. It was humiliating when he wept. Conversely, when I declared that it had been given considerable consideration, and it was also difficult for me. It is evident from all of the material I have composed that Tom is not a particularly emotional person, so his disintegration is a significant concern. He was in tears and conveyed a very intense message to me, significantly that he had made. He takes everything for granted because he believed that he could endure losing me one day. He begged me to grant him one final opportunity to exhibit his capabilities. In order to be an exceptional husband and father, I was required to inform him that my decision was certain and that he had arrived at the realization that was somewhat delayed, despite it was exceedingly challenging for me to accomplish this. I was unable to revert to the existence it had once known. It was unusual and uncomfortable for me to. I am required to remain on the phone and attempt to console him for the subsequent period of time. Minutes as he continued to weep, eventually, the weeping ceased and declared that if our son endured as a consequence, he would be unable to pardon. Whether it be him or me, we could revise the conditions of his custody in a few years when he is slightly older, so I assured him that this was merely a temporary situation. I apprised him of the temporary arrangement, that although this would be challenging for both of us, it was imperative that we endeavored to achieve for the benefit of our son and to ensure that the majority of despite the circumstances, he promptly concluded the call, and for the subsequent hours I received no communication from anyone, but all of a sudden, our friends have been reaching out to me, once more informing me that the actions I am taking is essentially incorrect, and that I should please reconsider your actions before you act upon them, contending that this is not the case. I should be self-centered and callous. Please consider this matter, as Tom is begging for one more opportunity. I found it to be quite challenging at first, but it has since become almost effortless. Everyone we know, and I am considering the possibility of altering my decision. I may be the villain in this situation, which is why I am no longer aware of the situation, as my spouse does not provide me with any assistance. Am I the one who is being unkind? Requesting a divorce and complete custody of. Greetings, our son. After a very busy day. Returning this week, I will provide you with information regarding my attorney. And I have been preparing for the discussions regarding the divorce settlement, and in the event of a custody dispute, Tom and I will initially meet with the mediator who has been appointed by the divorce procedure itself does not occur in court. I am quite anxious, but I can't fret too much regarding the custody dispute that everyone maintains, asserting that my aspiration for complete possession is preposterous. However, they fail to recognize the significance. Picture our son spends more time with me, and has always done so, so I am aware that he has a preference for me. We are all aware that this is not the manner in which children operate. However, Tom has consistently endeavored to construct our son's relationship solely on the basis of his observing Tom's sudden transformation into one of the individuals who has expressed concern is his father. The most irritating features of the proceeding. For the past week, he has been making inaccurate assertions about the extent of his longing on social media. How unjust it is that he is with his son. Unable to observe him, he has not made any attempt. However, he is permitted to enter at any time. A user has reposted these remarks. The number of mutual acquaintances who have incorporated their own observations regarding the nature of he is a devoted parent, and the truth is that he really is. The daily timetable of our son is also diverse. Allergies and preferred diets are. Tom was unaware that he was contacting us. He only called. The most recent inquiry was to determine whether our child continues to appreciate dinosaur-shaped morsels as a result of to his current space-themed cuisine. Our son has not experienced those in the past due to his obsession. These minor details for over a year questioned his ability to fulfill the role of a primary caregiver, as I have been actively engaged in the existence of our son, while Tom has only sparingly done so. My attorney is of the opinion that we have a strong case. Everything from the physician consultations I have taken our son to the parent-teacher conferences that Tom has failed to attend, and the daily. I have maintained a consistent regimen while working on all full-time employment is being documented. The financial aspect of things is comprehensive. A disaster occurred, and certain preliminary documents were sent by Tom's attorney, who is contesting my request for the residence. They argue that it should be divided equally as it was a bridal gift. Conveniently, they were from both households. Neglect to acknowledge that I have been accountable for all maintenance repairs and enhancements over the years. An incessant stream of communications from individuals who are not quite able to comprehend the situation is what is genuinely reaching. Some of Tom's gym patrons, including myself, have contacted me to convey their sorrow and to inform me of his exceptional qualities. It appears that they have always been living in an alternate universe where the possession of inevitably an appealing demeanor at work equates to being a responsible spouse and father. My mother-in-law's response has been the most unanticipated development. She genuinely telephoned me to inform me that she comprehended my decision and contrasted it with to the majority of our peers who have aligned with Tom. She disclosed that during the initial years of their marriage, she and Tom's father encountered comparable circumstances. Despite the challenges she faced, she resolved to remain and make an effort. In order to resolve them, I could discern how the situation was resolved for her as a result of the resignation in her intonation as she declared. All of this has been accomplished through the use of those words, made feasible by the extraordinary assistance of when it is necessary for me to confer with my own parents, lawyers, or manage my mother's documents, while my father has been supervising our firstborn, assists me in the organization of my financial records. I have developed an understanding of the isolation, and I experienced a sense of isolation in my marriage. Thank you to their aid. To be truthful, there have been instances in which the tension has been too much to manage at first. I've been alone for some time since I relocated. Last night, I attempted to obtain a cigarette. However, when I arrived at the location, I maintained my composure. The realization that my smoking was not a necessity but rather as a consequence of you acquire clarity regarding marital dissatisfaction. In these instances, which are peculiarly late, Tom has initiated a series of extensive text messages to me at night. Texts that encompass a wide spectrum of emotions, from heartfelt appeals to the accusations he made in the most recent message that he has received. Learning the appropriate method of washing and, if it is possible, to cook by watching tutorials. If it were not so disheartening, it would almost be. At the age of 28, he is only now humorous. The decision to cultivate these fundamental screenshots of Tom's private life talents, social media posts in which his viewpoint has been transmitted by numerous mutual acquaintances. He introduces himself as a devoted spouse who was captivated, surprised by a woman who had never conveyed her disappointment with the manner in which individuals are accusing me of being callous and speculating that I may be witnessing a midlife crisis in the comment section. That one caused me to chuckle. It appears that I am already in the midst of a midlife crisis. My attorney advised me not to, at the age of 35, react to any of these provocations, but to document all of her assertions that when he engages in this form of deceptive conduct in public, it actually helps advance our cause. It is challenging to refrain from doing so. Sensation of being under assault from all directions. Although it is evident that the individual is significantly more at ease. Our son has been since we relocated to my parents' residence is the sole item that he appears to be the one who keeps me grounded. He is generally more content and is consuming food. He continues to experience improved sleep through natural means. Inquires about his father, but he is unavailable. As concerned about it as he was when we previously discussed it. They all resided in the same residence, and the situation was quite fraught. Next week marks the occasion of my initial. Despite the fact that my attorney is present at the mediation, I am still experiencing anxiety, despite the fact that she has made preparations for. I recognize that it will be a difficult task. Tom's counsel has initiated the process. They have already declared their intention to vehemently oppose the unrestricted custody. Every day that passes, I receive a request that causes me to. I am even more certain about my decision. Amidst the immense anxiety and second I have been reminded by others and am assuming of the characteristics of a supportive home by live with my parents for the first time. For the first time in years, I am receiving an adequate amount of sleep, and I am beginning to recollect my previous life self before I became so engrossed in efforts to effectuate an impossible situation as the legal process commences with the forthcoming weeks will be crucial following. I shall administer the mediation session. I would like to provide additional information at this time. However, I am to convey my appreciation to all those who assisted me with my initial submission when I was most doubtful of myself as a result of your comments. Tom visited us. I will provide you with news shortly. I have been at my parents' residence today since my last visit, a week and a half ago, to provide a revision. I must confess that I was apprehensive about this. This was presumably our final encounter. Informal meeting prior to the actual legal proceeding. The process commences with our mediation session in a few days, given all of his recent passionate text communications that I have received. Expected this visit to be contentious. However, the events of today have significantly changed my perspective on a variety of matters. Tom was present when I responded to the inquiry. The door appears to be more organized than I am. Additionally, it had been some time since he had last seen him. To bringing a modest gift bag for our son. He was appropriately attired in A, rather than his button-down blouse. His manner definitely is typical gym clothing. None of the following piqued my interest: defensiveness or animosity that I had been experiencing. Preparing myself for the presence of was present even when he was rarely ever engaged during our marriage. He conversed with my parents in a brief conversation to my father regarding certain local athletics and inquired about my mother's garden, and it is true that this was curiously polite yet embarrassing. Unexpectedly, a routine conversation persisted for approximately 15 minutes before when they requested to see our infant. It took me some time to answer because the manner in which he posed the question was not requested. However, the request had already been granted, distinct from his typical conduct. At the moment we entered the living room, our son, as he played, his entire countenance became radiant. He shouted when he saw Tom, "Tom, Daddy." He abruptly abandons his toys and proceeds to sprint. I observed their contact information when I entered Tom's embrace. From the doorway, when I raised the custody of the son's newfound space passion. Documents. Tom brought a novel puzzle, with spacecraft demonstrating that our child had genuinely listened to Tom LED to assume responsibility for its construction, something that he had never done before, and typically, they seated together on the floor. He endeavored to oversee the activities and became enraged when our son failed to strictly adhere to his instructions during the hearing. Tom inquired about our son's day, his favorite aspects of daycare pals, and residing at the residence of Grandma and Grandpa. He genuinely engaged with me and listened to our concerns. Son's rambling responses regarding the backyard features a treehouse and I had never observed my neighbor's cat engage with our son in this manner at all times. The number of years we were wedded at one time. On one occasion, our son began to inform Tom about how I prepare sandwiches in the form of rockets. Previously, Tom would have been a source of inspiration for him. Derogatory comment regarding my culinary abilities. However, he now desired for our child to demonstrate the manner in which our son retrieved his father's instructions for the correct assembly. Take a rocket sandwich extremely seriously. The subsequent 20 minutes were spent in our son's inquiry regarding the kitchen. The question of when he would be able to see his father again was the true turning point. I was stunned by the optimistic expressions on both of their faces. Tom did not attempt to regulate the cheekbones. He does not immediately make demands or address the situation. While he awaited my response, he merely gazed at me, respond when it was time for Tom to depart. Following the conclusion of the game, our son extended a warm embrace and extended an invitation to him. Tom provided me with a reminder to return the following day. before I had given it a curious glance. After much contemplation, I found myself nodding. In the prior to Tom's departure, we engaged in a brief. He acknowledged the conversation that took place at the door. As a result of his inadequate parenting, without exhibiting his customary, he acknowledged that he was combative, observed the extent to which he had been deprived by his failure to becoming more engaged following our observation. Son's development and transformation in a single, even though he was unable to during these past few weeks. He assured me that he was committed to being a better husband, eager to acquire all the knowledge he could, become a more effective father, as he stated. I have been attending parenting programs for 3 years, times per week, and had employed a caregiver to assist her, instruct him on the appropriate method of caring for offspring are not to be gloated over, but rather to demonstrate to me that he was sincere about this. He displayed the diplomas on his phone, did not make any grandiose assertions regarding altering or attempting to persuade me to return, merely requested that I reassess instead of concluding the custody agreement, he suggested that we establish a schedule that would enable him to exhibit his capacity to serve as a responsible parent without disrupting our son's daily routine. I routinely contacted my attorney after he departure from the subsequent paragraph is punctuated and logically separated. I informed her that I would be willing to discuss the concept of a joint custody agreement and that I was no longer interested in pursuing a full-time in her custody. She raised all of the data that we had accumulated that illustrated, despite Tom's previous lack of involvement, I informed her that even if he had not been I needed to provide my spouse with an opportunity to enhance our fathering skills. Son's declaration of pure happiness today has caused me to recognize that, despite the fact that it is the appropriate course of action, sever my marital relationship, I lack the capacity to authority to terminate my son's, particularly his relationship with his father. Tom has fully demonstrated that he aspires to be the father of our son. It is remarkable that the third upgrade is warranted. Divorce negotiations are currently underway, significantly more amicably than I had. As anticipated, Tom and his counsel have. I am of the opinion that it has been exceedingly beneficial. Is his method of conveying his remorse for his previous actions of our son's guardianship. Arrangements are currently being finalized, verbally and informally, but we are believing that he should allocate half of his time to the month at his father's residence and we are actually doing the other half at mine. Merely that at the present, in a few days, at this time, the son will relocate to his father's residence. Initially, the arrangement caused me to feel anxious. However, Tom has been an invaluable asset to me in my endeavors to his great relief. He has urged she has been more dependent on her mother for assistance, more supportive than some of my dearest friends. Despite the termination of our marriage, she maintained friendships. He continues to contact me on a daily basis to inquire about my well-being, how I am doing, and sends me photographs of She is assisting Tom in the decoration of his bedroom. Furthermore, our son's residence is a concern. It has been resolved more easily than I anticipated. In recognition of the additional the effort I had invested over the years, agreed to sell it and divide the proceeds. This is in my benefit, as revenues are 55 to 45. Solution was initially suggested by his attorney, demonstrating their sincerity. In addition, Tom has a desire to be equitable. Completed a co-parenting course that was recommended by the mediator, but not implemented. Essential as a result of our recent co-parenting arrangement. App that enables us to administer calendars of appointments and our offspring activities without the necessity of conversing with. He has been providing immediate notifications to each other, inform me of his development and the manner in which Tom manages. Our son's space period has been the most unanticipated development in his flat. The spare chamber has been transformed into a miniature planetarium that is fully equipped with glow-in-the-dark stars that are affixed on in order to preserve the continuity between residences for our son that he requested from me. He has been engaging in a nocturnal ritual, practicing with his mother as neither one of us is of the opinion that a 2-week period without the presence of either parent is healthy. I continue to see our son on a regular basis. The past few days, while Tom is absent, we have made arrangements for Wednesday's dinner with whoever does not possess him that week and alternate Sundays in place of revisiting our marital issues. The mediation sessions have been beneficial, given that they have prioritized practical methods of co-parenting in relation to coordinating school timetables, healthcare. Tom has been making decisions and making holiday arrangements, actively participating, taking notes, and no longer posing pertinent inquiries. Conflict on social media or late at night. We have established explicit contact boundaries. Our attorneys or the co-parenting application. In the final revision, Tom, please address all matters. Voluntarily eliminated all of his previous posts regarding our situation and stated that we are resolving the issue in private for the benefit of our son through his mother has been an unexpected blessing. In addition to, she also instructs Tom on how to become a parent, functions as a mediator between us when tensions emerge. She arranges a meeting with both sets of elders were present last week, so we could engage in a reasonable discussion regarding our disagreements regarding preschool. Ultimately, we devised alternatives, a solution that met the needs of all parties involved. It seems that the son is adapting to the new situation quite well, despite the fact that we are making an effort to maintain a certain level of order, consistent by bringing his preferred stuffed creatures with him when he relocates. In between residences, he is delighted to have 2 rooms and 2 sets of objects that are devoid of. He ceased to exhibit any indications of apprehension, inquired as to the time of our return home, and instead, the conversation centered on mothers and the residences of our father are being seized by our attorneys. Skillfully manage the financial matters, with specific instructions regarding the amounts that each of us will contribute and the manner in which the funds may be implemented. We are in the process of establishing a collaborative, specifically for the expenses of our firstborn. Tom independently suggested this due to his I wished to ensure that our financial situation was secure. The responsibilities of co-parents were: we have a comprehensive parental approach that is transparent, a comprehensive strategy that encompasses all aspects, education to medical options, instructions for the management of future relationships have been incorporated, including establishing any potential new partnerships prior to. I am cognizant of the fact that I will be presenting them to our child, that there are still impediments in our way. This is merely the beginning of our journey. There will be a co-parenting adventure. There will undoubtedly be obstacles. However, for the initial, I have a sincere sense of time. Since the beginning of it all, we aspire to be able to prioritize our son's requirements and our collaboration as parents. Even if we are unable to collaborate as for spouses, the most critical factor is that my son is experiencing greater joy than I have ever observed. Tom and I have both come to the realization that letting go of the past wounds is less critical than the pursuit of excellence. Co-parents, I am pleased that we were able to convene to an agreement that prioritizes in order to ensure our son's welfare while simultaneously allowing us to. I have profound relationships with him. I am grateful for the assistance and direction you have provided. During this journey I experienced, despite my self-doubt, your guidance sustained me, assisted me in making decisions that would. This community will be advantageous to my offspring and me, has been an extraordinary source of knowledge and fortitude